Good evening and welcome to the broadcast. My name is Sumaya Hussein and you are watching the Dissect. Now on this week's episode, we're going to be dissecting the recent high school unrest that has left the country wondering what is going on in these high schools. Now I'm talking about boarding schools in particular, where we see cases of dormitories being torched, and as of today, more than 70 students are in custody with charges of attempted arson, some of them being caught in the act and others being caught in the possession of kerosene and diesel, maybe attempting to do so. Now, this week's guest is Jeremiah Nganda. He is a lecturer, a parent, and also sits in the board of two high schools, one of them being a day school and the other a boarding school. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Jeremiah.
Thank you.
All right, I understand that we don't have a lot of time, so I need you to help me understand what exactly could be the problem in these boarding schools that is making the students react this way?
There has been quite a number of speculations, and people say it could be academic burnout. Remember, we're just coming from the COVID break, which had taken long, and students are being pushed to cover a lot of content within a short period of time. But I also feel we have issues to do with peer influence, issues to do with indiscipline, but also failure on the part of the parents, teachers, and also school administration to inculcate the kind of good morals and responsibility that we need on this level of students.
All right, thank you for that. That's a good observation there. You've talked about parents being responsible, teachers, and also the students, talking about mob psychology. So, Mwalimu, what would you say, what role should the parents be playing in this situation?
There are quite a number of things the parents can do. One of it can be they need to set a good example. And then secondly, they need to start by instilling discipline on these children while they are still at home before they go to school. But then also, the parents can be the ones to instill morals and also good citizenship responsibilities on the students. That by the time someone goes to high school, they have already been guided on how they need to be responsible and act in a way that shows that they respect other people and they are good citizens.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of discipline, the CS of Education, Professor George Magoha, was suggesting the reintroduction of corporal punishment. What do you think would be the effect of that?
I think the suggestion by Professor Magoha, the CS of Education, is really, if I would say, subjective. The first thing I think we need to first interrogate to see what exactly is the cause of this. Remember, we used to have caning before, and then it was removed. We need to ask ourselves, why was this caning removed in the first place before we can talk of introducing it? And then if we are to reintroduce corporal punishment in secondary schools, I think we first need to have wide consultations with the various stakeholders. We need to engage the parents, we need to engage the teachers, we need to engage the students. It can't be just a pronouncement that is done by one man and assumed that it's going to affect the whole country. And then also, we haven't done any research to confirm whether these issues are only coming because caning is not there in secondary schools.
All right, thank you for your thoughts, Mr. Jeremiah. We also have a student in the studio here with us. His name is Meshak Alande. Welcome to the show, Meshak.
Thank you.
What's going on in the high school? What's wrong?
I think the pressure that the students are getting from the teachers is what it's making them to ban the schools, because they cannot solve their issues through dialogue, because they think the teachers won't listen to them, so they have to ban the school. Mm-hmm. So that they can get what they want.
And what they want is to go home, would you say so? Or they just need a break?
They just need a break.
From the school calendar. Back to you, Mr. Jeremiah, because you sit in a board. Have you considered that, having 4 semesters as opposed to the normal 3 semesters in an academic year and no functions, no midterms, shorter holidays, have you considered, relooking at that to, give students some sort of relief?
Thank you, Sumaya. The challenge that we have as a board is that the issues to do with the school calendar are not determined at the school level, but they are determined at the national level. So we have to follow the rules and the guidelines that have been set by the Ministry of Education. So yes, it is true that we have a challenge with the 4 terms in a year and the short breaks in terms of midterm and school closing, but we have very little that we can do as a board of management.
All right. Speaking of breaks, on that note, we're going to take a short break here on the Dissect. Remember, you can contribute to this conversation via our Twitter handles at Sumaya Hussein using the hashtag the Dissect. We also have a live audience. I'll be expecting your engagement, a few questions and comments here. And yeah, let's take a break.
Are you in Daystar Valley Road campus and in need of a quick snack? Is the heat of Nairobi dehydrating and you much need to grab a cold, refreshing drink? Or maybe you could use a break from the long lectures? Then look no further. Ken Zip Snack Shop got you covered. Enjoy great customer services. You grab yourself chocolate and banana muffins, hot dogs, french fries, sweet mandazis, smocha, and a variety of juices among other delicacies. And guess what? We have the best coffee in town. Our greatest pride is in the satisfaction of our customers. Try us and we can promise you will be back.
Welcome back to the Dissect. My name is Sumaya Hussein and we're talking about high school unrest. In studio we have a student here and also a parent with us, and I'm going to take questions from the live audience before I let our guests go.
Hello, I'm Tony Mutunga, a researcher from the Segates Foundation, and I just had one question. So, are there any centers within the school that children could express how they feel, or in case if there's unrest, there's a way that they could present their problems? And if not, how can the school introduce this thing to the system? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. We have quite a number of schools that mention that they have guidance and counseling sections, and I think those are the centers that you're referring to. And while in terms of the record on paper, we have the guidance and counseling departments, my question would be on the practicality of those. Do the students have the confidence that they can hear out their issues without the fear of being victimized? Consider, for example, what happened in 2001 at Changuli Secondary School in Machakos, where 2 students felt that they really wanted school to be closed early. And so they end up torching a dormitory, killing over 60 students. Those students, if they had confidence that if they would hear out their issues and they won't be victimized for that, I think that openness can be helpful. So yes, we need to have guidance and counseling sections, departments that are functional, not just on paper.
All right, thank you for that. Any other question from the live audience?
Hello, my name is Jemima Nema. I'm a parent, and I am particularly interested in why the board decided to have 4 semesters. I don't know how you came up with the 4 semesters, which I think for those of us who've gone through the 3 semesters, it's a lot for the child. So I don't know how you came up with the 4 semesters, and please advise us as parents on why it was necessary.
Thank you, Jemima, for that question. I think the decision to come up with the 4 terms for the secondary school was not done by the board of management of the different secondary schools, but it was from the Ministry of Education level. And I agree with you, this is overburdening the students, especially given that the breaks are quite short, and the content that they need to cover within the terms is too heavy. So if I were to be asked, I would say we needed to stick with the 3 terms that our learners are used to, and maybe shift the calendar year, not to start from January. Maybe it would be starting from, let's say, like July and ending in June or something of that sort. I feel like the 4 terms was really unnecessary.
Thank you for that. We'll take a question for the student now. Any question for the student?
Hi, I'm Shakina, and I have a question for the student. As a student, you'll feel overburdened, and I feel like you will have a lot of, a lot of things that might be distracting you as a student, and also, you know, in a normal basis and the things we used to go through, like personally, when I was back in school, there was a lot of caning and all of that. Do you feel like students would agree in bringing back the caning, or what do you think could be a better option for such a situation? Because, you know, as the CS say that caning should be brought back, and, you know, as a student, what is your take on that? Do you feel like it could change things? Do you feel like it will bring more distractions in schools? What do you think?
Thank you, Shakina. For me, I think it will worsen the situation. The students don't need caning so that they can change or improve their behaviors. What I think is the teachers should allow dialogue so that they can sort out the issues with the students.
All right, thank you for that response, Meshach. Now we're due for our second break here on the Dissect, but first let me just take a look at what people at home are saying. At Facebook, we have Gina from Karen saying, I agree with Mr. Jeremiah. Students' mental health should be prioritized. Kids SMS from Maxwell saying, kids need to be beaten. We were beaten and we did die, nor did we burn down our schools. Okay, Maxwell, we hear you. Now, we're taking a short break here on the Dissect. When we come back, we talk to Christian psychologist and youth pastor Ken Aringo, so stay tuned for that.
I picked Daystar because I wanted to be a journalist, and there is no other institution of higher learning that has produced more media professionals than Daystar. If you're looking for a university to go to, you definitely need to come to Daystar, because the kind of environment you will get here is nothing you can get anywhere in the country. I came here, for instance, because there's hands-on training and experience in Shine FM and Involvement newspaper, where I worked on and got my first byline as a journalist. If you're coming to Daystar University, you're getting excellence, transformation, and servant leadership.
Avoid the waiting list. Visit our campuses today for our next intake. Call us or log on to www.daystar.ac.ke.
Welcome back to the Dissect. My name is Sumaya Hussein. And in studio with me, we have another student, Tina Munyinyi, and we also have Felix Simotwo. He is a youth worker, and also he's serving under the Daystar chaplaincy. Now, the pastor Ken Aringo won't be joining us today. He had other commitments to get to. All right, so the burning issue today is the high school unrest that we've witnessed over the last 2 months, and we even have some counties reporting over 30 cases of arson. So I'll start with you, Felix. What are your thoughts on this whole issue?
Right. Thank you very much for having me. I think one of the challenges we're having now is we are from a season where it is unprecedented. We didn't know what people are going through, like during COVID. And thereafter, we have gone back to school, and we expect our young people to continue the life the way it was. And because of that, I feel like there are many issues they're going through that have not been addressed from home and even in school, that we have these set targets for them to achieve, whereas we're not taking care of them. So one of the things I feel is a problem is, one, the parents didn't have an opportunity to, mentor and just be parents to these kids, because even them, they're going through pressure. And then the teachers have been given these targets to achieve. In fact, I was asking the other day, because even me, I have a child in school. Why? What is the rush for? What are we rushing? Who are we, competing against to make sure that we are back in current semester in the year 2023? And because of all this pressure, I feel like the young people can't handle it anymore, and so they're letting it out to what they know best, which is their school environment. We have parents who were going through issues, so they didn't know how to handle their kids at home. They have never been kids for this long. Some of these children discovered that their parents are not the parents they knew, so they have issues from home. Some of these kids lost parents, lost relatives, that they have not had an opportunity to deal with trauma and all this. So they are going to school and they're expected to be a normal student, yet no one is going through a normal life after COVID. So I feel like that's a major issue that has not been dealt with. Mm-hmm. And it's really sad that it's been projected this way, and still we don't know what to do. One, I'm assuming because we don't know what to do, and two, because the government has pressure on us to achieve targets that I don't understand. Yeah.
Let me invite the student Tina. Tina, you're in your Form 4.
Yes.
How different is school like from how it was pre-COVID?
So let me start by thanking you for having me on this show. So comparing to where we were about 3 years ago to where we are today, I can say that a lot has really changed, a lot that none of the students were ready or prepared for. We used to have so many social functions. 3 years ago, we used to call them funkies. They're no longer there now. So this is putting a lot of stress on us. We're in school 24/7. We have so much pressure. I think that the school and everyone around us should remember that we're also human beings and we need to be heard. That's all I have to say for now.
All right. And when does it get to the point where students now start thinking about torching a dormitory so that they could have a break or go home? What goes on in school?
I think that's one of the ways that students are trying to show that they have grievances that they need to be aired out, and that's the way of like releasing that, because there's no one there to listen to them. The teachers, the management, everyone is going through their own stress, and we're there, and everyone is surpassing it on us. So I think we should just be heard without having to go through those extremes.
All right. Thank you, Tina. Felix, you mentioned about negligence. So where exactly is this negligence coming from? Is it mostly on the part of the parents or the teachers?
I think it's both ways, and I'll add the government, because one, the government sat down and thought this is how the calendar run, and then they're telling us as the parents, my guys, fix yourself to this calendar. The parents by themselves have pressure, because one, like this year that's just coming to an end, we had like 4 terms or something that we need to raise fees across board. We have not been working, so we already have pressure that we don't know who to give that pressure. I mean, luckily for the kids, maybe there's an option in school that, when you touch the school, then they'll hear you. I mean, they forced the government to have half term. It was not part of the plan this term. But you see, we as parents, we don't have that opportunity. So then we have to deal with the pressure. So I feel like for us to have a better conversation, all stakeholders need to meet and agree. Hear where the students are coming from. And I totally understand. When I was in school, we used to have funkies throughout. I think I enjoyed school more because of funkies. And then thereafter, I enjoyed learning, all right? Because it made us understand ourselves better. Whereas now they're being told, all you need to do in school is so read. So they're like, no, I'll do the best I can to release this pressure. The parents at home, we're under pressure. I mean, you're being called that your kids are coming home for half term. Even at home, you can't raise those kids. I mean, do you know how much it costs to have your children back at home? These kids, when they come from school, they eat a whole loaf of bread by themselves, one of them. So imagine if everyone is back, then they're home for 2 days. Then you're told they need to go back to school. So you need to look for this money. You have pressure. So even you as a parent, you're not playing a key role of raising your kids. Rather, every day your mind is rushing for, oh my God, how is tomorrow going to be like? So I feel like that's a major challenge. That negligence is across board. We as parents are not playing our part because we're under pressure. The children, they don't know who to talk to, because when they come to me, I'm like, my guy, go to school and read, all right? They can't talk to their teacher because the teachers have pressure from the government. Make sure you achieve your target, clear, make sure you finish your syllabus. So everyone is negligent across in terms of this issue.
So how do we move forward from here now?
We need to sit down and talk. One, we don't need to rush after something that I don't get. Who is this person who's setting a target for us? Everyone across the world stopped. So we have an opportunity for all of us to sit down and say, you know what, our kids are suffering. My son is PP1, and he comes home with 3 different homeworks every day. Why? So this kid can't play after 4. So he gets home at around 3. He has to sit down for like 1.5 hours to make sure he does his homework. I'm not home, so I get home, I have to check his homework. Why? Why are we rushing to finish the syllabus? Whereas we can sit down and say, guys, this is where we are at now. We don't have the money to make sure we pay for 3 terms. So reduce the pressure on the parents. The kids don't have to finish the syllabus by end of next year. So what do we need to do? Spread it a bit better so that they can still have time to do funkies, release pressure, and enjoy school. The teachers set targets, but this is what I can achieve this term. Then everyone has a better conducive environment to grow themselves. If we don't do this, I feel like we'll go back to the same place over and over again until we sit down and have a better conversation.
Mm-hmm. Tina, how are you doing with the syllabus, by the way? Seeing that you've had I think three terms now, yeah? Rushing to catch up.
I think she's going to school with a suitcase now. They have stopped carrying bags.
it's a bit heavy on us, and we're also trying to cope with that. I think the school should create a platform and narrow down, like, have representatives for each form for somewhere where they can be able to air their views so that they can be able to be heard, not necessarily because they can't listen to everyone. We are so many of us in school, so we could have like a representative for each form so that they should know, they should actually know what's happening, and they should be able to hear us.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for your thoughts, both of you. Felix, thank you. Thank you, Tina. We're taking another break here on the Dissect. And remember, you can contribute to this conversation. When we come back, I'll be taking some calls from the audience at home. And then afterwards, we're going to have a performance from a musical artist, a gospel artist. So stay tuned for that. Once again, welcome back to the Dissect. I'm Sumaya Hussein. The topic for today is on this high school unrest that the country has seen. And I have now a parent here in studio with me, and his name is Emmanuel Macero. And we still have Felix, a youth worker, now currently working with the J-Star Chaplaincy. And first, we'll start with audience questions. Questions from the live audience?
Hi. Earlier you mentioned that sometimes students are traumatized and then they let that out into the system. So I was thinking, how can schools and parents help students deal with their trauma effectively and practically?
All right, I think we can take two, then move it to the guest.
You also mentioned earlier, I'm Janelle. I think it was Felix who mentioned that this pressure and stress coming from each sector, the parents, the children, and the government. How can we get the opportunity to sit down and talk? Because I know parents, students, and the government in one room is not going to happen. This is Kenya. Can it be possible that the parents and the students meet, and then the parents and the government meet? Or how did you think this would pan out? Or do you have any ideas of how that could work?
All right, thank you for that. Did you get them?
I did. Let me start with Janelle's question. The challenge we're having now is that we're not having conversations. We are having instructions. I mean, if all of us have grown up in our homes, the moment your parents start giving you instructions, naturally, you put up a wall and you rebel. But when you sit down and then they say, this is where we are at, this is a reality, we lost 1 year, so we need to figure out how we're moving forward, then I feel like we'll have better conversations. So I feel like we need to stop giving instructions to each other and involve the different stakeholders in forums, and if we call them barazas or group meetings, that will help us come up with a solution. The problem we're having now is the CS will stand in front of Harambee House and say, schools are being open next week and you're going for 3 months. In fact, he's very categorical of how he says these things, and we don't have a choice. So then we have to live with it. But I feel if we have conversations, not instructions, then we'll move forward. Yeah.
All right, thank you for that, Felix. I'd like to invite the parent for a moment, Emmanuel Macero. Parents, I understand that parents have had to dig deeper into their pockets and putting in like an extra 10,000 Kenyan shillings on fees. So in your perspective as a parent, is that just?
Thank you for having me. It's really absurd. As a parent working and having to pay extra money because your student or your kid just burnt down a dormitory. I mean, it's not supposed to happen. I think there's something wrong with our kids. And actually, I think we parents and teachers are not getting it right. Because I think the moment we left instilling discipline in our kids, that's where we went wrong. Come to think of it, the kids, the crop of 80s and 70s, we did not have this kind of madness happening. I don't understand a normal kid from a good family which discipline has been instilled can go burn down a dormitory. So I'm saying it's really absurd. Me paying extra 10,000, working so hard to get money to feed my family, and our kids doing this. I mean, those are extra expenses, which we really do not need to incur as parents. So in this case, I'm actually very sad and at the same time very angry because the government actually removed corporal punishment from schools. You see, this worked for people. This worked. As you can look around, Sumaya, the youths of this current era are very deviant, okay? You see them doing uncouth behavior, even in public. You tend to think, did the parent do their role? Are schools actually doing what they're supposed to do, especially teachers? Because when school closes, we see this behavior very rampant, okay? And so tell me, if you give them this kind of freedom and not instilling any discipline, be sure they're going to do this thing, absurd thing, burning down the dormitories, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I understand you're an advocate of corporal punishment.
Exactly.
Let me hear from Felix. What do you feel about that?
This is the problem we're having now. These are the kinds of parents that we have, because one of the things that you've heard him say is that, are the teachers doing their role? Teachers are not there to parent your kid.
Mr. Felix, you see, we parents do our role taking kids to school, right? We get school fees, we pay. The teacher has one job, okay, to teach these kids. And because they stay with them, I mean, it's only morally right that they instill this discipline and also help in instilling good moral to these kids. So what do? They complain, okay? Most of the times they complain they have not been paid, they have been underpaid. So, I mean, what else are there for if not to instill this discipline and also make sure that these kids that we live to them for, I think, 3 months out of the 1 month that we have with them, that they do the good job. Why are they not doing that?
One of the challenges we're having as youth workers is that we don't have role models. All right, some of these parents can't dare do what their parents are doing because they're even ashamed. All right, so we're having a very big problem in terms of how parents are living and the kids are seeing. All right. In fact, some of them laugh and say, I hang out with my parents the whole week, and you go to church on Sunday and he's part of the committee, stands in front. I'm like, oh my gosh, if only they knew what he's been doing through the week. Corporal punishment will become a problem in this country. And let me tell you why. The same teachers are going through pressure. You know what they'll do? They'll exert what they're going through on these kids. One of the things we had then when we were being beaten in schools is that these kids, we were village kids, like we were being raised by the community. Like me where I was, even if they didn't beat me, they'll tell my mom, your son is not doing well. We have no idea where these teachers are coming from. They're coming in with their own issues, and you're telling them, you are allowed to beat my kid. They'll kill your child because they don't care. Then parents and teachers had the best interest for us. Now I'm doing my job to tick a box. At the end of the month, I'll sign my assessment, I've finished my syllabus, and I go. They don't care about you as a person. They care about target. And the same parents also saying, just do your job. My job is exactly that. So I feel like that's where the miscommunication is.
Mr. Felix, you mentioned about the community. We all agree in those communities. And I think you tend to agree with me that we were disciplined, right? So what has changed? It's because the same community, which teachers are part of, are not doing their good job, right? We become individualistic. Everyone wants to raise the kids their own way. And I think entirely, I would say that parents are doing a good job. Our system, which I think I tend to blame the government for actually manipulating the system, is that's the cause why we're having these indisciplined cases.
All right.
Can I read a verse for this parent? Because the Bible is very clear. All right, Proverbs 22:6 says, start your children off in the way they should grow, and even when they are old, they will not turn away from it. So start early. Don't wait until your child is a teenager, then you start saying there's a problem. The reality is every parent knows their kid and knows what the parameters and how to make sure they become the best children or not. And so if you don't do your job, someone else will do it, and maybe not very well. And then we'll have issues.
Mr. Felix, the same Bible says, if you spare the rod, what do?
You spoil the child.
Exactly. So we have spoiled our kids because we've spared the road. The government has told us spare the road. The parents are sparing the road. The teachers are sparing the road. What are we doing? Ruining our kids. And that's the result we have. Okay?
All right, we need to take a break. Thanks so much for the thoughts. We have a caller here in line. Her name is Wangu Kanuri from Nairobi. Wangu, let me get your comment.
Hello, my name is Wango, yes, and I think the reason as to why students are banning dormitories in their schools is because of the curriculum being squeezed and them being forced to read more than it should be.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that comment, Wangu. Thank you for calling in. And we're just about to wrap up the show, so I would like you to give your last remarks. And I want to know, you said that who's rushing us? You're asking who's rushing us. So someone else commented and wondered what would happen if we were to abolish boarding schools entirely.
I went to boarding school for 4 years. I loved it. I was away from pressure of living early in the morning and come back in the evening. Then I had an opportunity to grow myself as a young man.
That was a day school, though.
No, I went to boarding school after that. I mean, I did my primary school from class 1 to 8 then. Some people might not understand this, CBC, right? Class 1 to 8, then after that, high school I went to a boarding school. It was a very good experience because I had to look after myself as a young man. I had to, plan my schedule. Even if there are guidelines, I had to, be aligned to everything that runs in school. So I think it's a great space for you to grow up. As parents, we need to sit down and evaluate our young people and know where do my children fit in. There are those that for sure you'll be forced to stay with them at home because maybe they need more guidance, and those who are good to go to boarding schools. So I don't think we should have one cut rule, and that's where I have a problem with the government. That because something is not working, we just decide today it will not work anymore without conversations. The problem is not the boarding schools, the problem is what is going around schools.
How about you, Macero? Boarding schools or no?
I will still insist. Boarding school, yes. We still have to continue the boarding school. There's nothing wrong with them. I still see the government needs to do the one thing that they did for us, which I still appreciate up to date. They need to bring back the corporal punishment and the chaplains in schools. One way or the other, we all need to stop giving excuses and mentor these kids. And the mentoring that I'm talking about, it's not any other way but instilling discipline, however much we need to. This talking thing is not working for us. We need to stop that and go the way that worked for us. I mean, corporal punishment worked. You're here because you are disciplined, right? Exactly.
All right, thank you so much for your thoughts. We were happy to have a parent's perspective on this. Thank you, Emmanuel. And thank you so much, Felix. We were glad to have you on today's program.
Can I give my final remarks to this amazing parent?
All right.
One thing, parents need to be present. Okay. If you're absent from raising your kid, don't expect anyone to be present, or the world will be present, and they'll shape them the best way the world knows how to. And then we'll be back to the same space.
Okay. We've come to the end of the program. Thank you so much for staying with us, and a big thank you to our live audience as well for coming through, and also Daystar University for sponsoring us and making this possible, and the crew members as well, of course, the guests. Thank you for your time. I enjoyed your company. And right now we're having HMD, a gospel artist, coming in to perform. I'm going to sign off, but next week we're going to be discussing another national tragedy, the Mwingi bus accident. So see you next week. My name is Sumaya Hussein. Have a good night.
Hey, wanna records?
Tangia zamani sikuwa na mani, mambo nilitenda ni hukumu moyoni, na kinyongo akilini nijawa na huzuni, binadamu koloni kunifanya duni, nikakutana na jalali kanibadilishia hali, tukapenda na shika na patana, tukakuwa rafiki sana, nikakutana na jalali kanibadilishia hali, tukapenda na shika na patana, tukakuwa rafiki sana. Ibilisi na kupata laka, ni bora kuachana. watu tabu, jema habari ya unaye. Mamonekano we mtamu, ila ndani unauae. Umejaa watu tabu, jema habari ya unaye. Mipango yako haiwezi, shetani jamani, nishampataga Mwenyezi, amenipa amani. Nikakutana na Jalali, kanibadilishia hali, tukapenda na shika na patana, tukakuwa rafiki sana. Nikakutana na Jalali, kanibadilishia hali, tukapenda na shika na patana, tukakuwa rafiki sana. Ibilisi nakupa talaka, ni bora kwa chana, umejawa matata. Ibilisi nakupa talaka, ni bora kwa chana, umejawa matata. Wangu muda umepotea, kwako nini nimepokea, ndani ya Yesu nabobea. Wangu muda umepotea, kwako nini nimepokea, ndani ya Yesu ninabobea. Nikakutana na Jalali, kanibadilishia hali, tukapenda na shika na patana, tukakuwa rafiki sana. Nikakutana na Jalali, kanibadilishia hali, tukapenda na shika na patana,